The shortest war in recorded history lasted just 38 minutes. That's shorter than most TV episodes. And yet, in that brief time, hundreds of lives were lost, a ruler was overthrown, and a nation's fate was sealed. This is the story of the Anglo-Zanzibar War, and how it all happened before 10 o'clock in the morning. Chapter 1. The Scramble for Africa. Our story begins in the late 1800s, a time when European powers were carving up Africa during what's now known as the Scramble for Africa. One small island off the coast of East Africa, Zanzibar, was a valuable prize. It wasn't just a tropical paradise, it was a major centre for trade in spices, ivory, and, tragically, slaves. The British Empire had a strong influence over the region. They had already signed treaties to limit the slave trade and were determined to keep Zanzibar under their control. The island was ruled by a sultan, and while Zanzibar had its own culture and traditions, British political power was always looming in the background. Chapter 2. The death that sparked a war. On August 25, 1896, Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini, who was friendly to British interests, suddenly died. His cousin, Sultan Khalid bin Barghash, immediately took over the palace and declared himself the new ruler. The British weren't happy about this. They suspected Khalid might try to push back against their influence and disrupt their control over trade routes. Under an 1886 treaty, the British had the right to approve who became sultan. Khalid, however, had no interest in their approval. Instead, he fortified the palace, gathered nearly 2,800 soldiers, and prepared for a fight. Chapter 3. The ultimatum. The British, led by Consul Basil Cave, sent an ultimatum to Khalid: step down and leave the palace by 9 a.m. on August 27th, or face war. The message was clear. This wasn't a negotiation. Khalid's reply? Silence. Instead, he barricaded himself inside with machine guns, artillery, and the Royal Guard. Outside, British warships began arriving in the harbour: HMS Philomel, HMS Raccoon and HMS Sparrow, along with a few gunboats. By dawn, their cannons were pointed directly at the palace. Chapter 4. The 38-minute war. At exactly 9:02 a.m., with no sign of Khalid surrendering, the British opened fire. The palace, a mostly wooden structure, quickly caught fire. Within minutes, parts of it collapsed. The Sultan's artillery fired back, but was no match for the Royal Navy's superior firepower. One of the first casualties was the Sultan's royal yacht, the HHS Glasgow, which sank in the harbour after being shelled. By 9:40 a.m., just 38 minutes after the first shot, the fighting was over. The palace was in ruins. Khalid had fled through a back door to the German consulate, and British troops occupied the area. Chapter 5. The aftermath. The human cost was staggering for such a short conflict. Around 500 of Khalid's soldiers and civilians were killed or wounded, while the British reported just one injured sailor. The new Sultan, Hamoud bin Mohammed, was installed, someone far more cooperative with British policies. As for Khalid, the Germans refused to hand him over, and he eventually escaped to German East Africa, where he lived in exile. The war also reinforced British dominance in East Africa, sending a clear message: resistance would be short-lived and brutally crushed. The war in Zanzibar.
The Anglo-Zanzibar War might be remembered for its brevity, but it's also a snapshot of an era when empires could change the fate of nations in less time than it takes to make breakfast. In just 38 minutes, a ruler was deposed, lives were lost, and colonial power tightened its grip. It's a reminder that in history, the length of a war doesn't always determine its impact. Sometimes, even the shortest battles can leave the longest shadows.